How smart do you think you'd need to be in order to become a teacher? I mean, you'd like to think that the people who are standing up in front of the classroom, teaching the next generation, enriching their minds, allowing them to go off into the world to become productive citizens and workers would be some of the best you could find. You need the kind of people who can enlighten children and also make them want to learn. And that's not a skill that everyone has. It takes a certain type of person to be a teacher, and someone with a bit of intellect, you would think. Well, not so, it would seem, because we have the numbers, the ATARs that people are being admitted to teaching degrees with, and in some cases they are as low as 39.35. Yes, this is the reporting today that the University of Tasmania, the Oz says, has offered a place in a primary school teaching degree to an applicant with a raw ATAR of 39.35, a rank reflecting the bottom 4% of high school results. Yes, you can get into a teaching degree to go back to school to teach the next generation if you were in the bottom 4% of the people who graduated when you left school. Try and make it make sense. The Education Minister, Jason Clare, said that too many teachers leave university and don't feel prepared because their course doesn't have the fundamentals to teach kids to read and write and count, and how to help brand new teachers manage disruptive classrooms. And look, that may well be the case, but I rather think there's another problem if the people who are going into those courses where they don't learn how to teach children how to read and write probably can't read and write themselves, because that is what we're talking about here. Now, there are certain things that have been instituted in the last decade, including exit tests that student teachers have to take to show that they have general levels of competency when it comes to mathematics and being able to read and write. They're actually failing those tests at extraordinary levels. So if they're coming in the system one end and coming out the other, there's not much being done for them while they're there. But this has been going on for some time. It was back in 2016, 9 years ago, that we learnt that people getting into university to study teaching with ATARs of under 50 had doubled to 14.3%. That's 14.3% of all people who were going into teaching degrees in 2016 had an ATAR of under 50, and more than half of them had an ATAR of under 70. 70 is the average ATAR that students leave school with. So you can see just how bad this is. And Tanya Plibersek, back in 2019, of course, before they came to government, 3 years before they came to government, said that a Labor government would institute ATAR caps so that you would have to meet a minimum in order to get into university. I know, Joe, that Victoria has a cap of 70, but it doesn't exist across the rest of the country. It should have existed 3 years ago. It should have existed 10 years ago.
It should have. And look, to be fair to the government, they're doing a huge amount of work in overhauling. Not just, and Mark Scott, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Sydney, is leading this massive sort of wholesale review, basically going back to the drawing board on teaching degrees, saying how do we attract the best and brightest to it? How do we make sure that we get more people? Because the number of people going into teaching degrees has been dropping off, and it's just started to stabilise now, I believe. And of course, the number of people who go into teaching often burn out and disappear after 5 or 10 years. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. Obviously, if you are not academically qualified or competent, or you don't have sufficient literacy and numeracy skills, you're not going to be able to cope in a classroom environment. So you have to make sure that you get those. It's very much a back to basics approach where you are doing, there's more of a focus on the 3 Rs, getting rid of a whole bunch of really stupid, trendy teaching techniques that have been kind of bedeviling the profession in recent decades. So all of this is happening. In the meantime, though, we do have this massive teacher shortage right across the country. In the biggest state, New South Wales, there's an enormous teacher shortage to the point where they've actually had to call teachers out of retirement, and there's been teachers job sharing classrooms. So one class will have one teacher, same class will have one teacher on Mondays and Tuesdays, and different ones Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, which obviously is not ideal. So I suppose there's this sort of immediate problem, which is we need to get as many teachers as possible just to fill the shortages that exist in the classroom. And then there's a bigger problem, which is how do we long term make sure that teaching is a profession that is respected, that attracts people to it. And the most important thing for that is that teaching is valued and respected, and that teachers are held in esteem in the community. And there was this incredible survey done by Monash University a couple of years ago that found something that was a huge number. The vast majority of teachers actually believed that they were not valued by the community. Now, if you have people who are actually in that profession who think we are not being valued and are still there, imagine what everyone else thinks. So I go on because I've done a huge amount of work in this area, and the tellies run some great campaigns called Best, or all the News Corp mastheads have, called Best in Class and Australia's Best Teacher, to try and specifically to try to fix this problem and turn it around. So it is being turned around, but with really, really small universities like the University of Tasmania, where you need lower ATARs to get into it across the board because it's a much smaller university. You don't have that many people clamouring to get into it. It's a long way away, obviously, from the mainland. It's pretty close to Antarctica, probably closer to Antarctica than it is to James Cook. So a great little university though, but that's part of the story as well, that it is a small uni. But basically, this is a terrible, terrible problem, but it is being turned around thanks to the minister in particular, and to a lesser extent me.